Good evening, I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad, Kuttan.
Thank you for watching Consider This. Joining us on the show tonight, we have Datuk Abdul Latif bin Haji Abu Seman, who is the Director General of the Malaysia Productivity Corporation, or better known as MPC. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having invited us here. Thank you.
So the MPC is the Secretariat of Pemuda, which I think many of us are familiar with, but may not know the structure of it. Yeah. But the idea of MPC, or the mandate of MPC, is to essentially review existing regulations, make it easier to do business in Malaysia, remove all the unnecessary red tape. I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about where MPC sits within the structure, so we have a kind of framework in our minds as to what the role, where MPC comes in terms of making it easier to do business in Malaysia.
MPC is a statutory body under the Ministry of International Trade and Industry. All right, so Pemuda is a special task force to facilitate business in Malaysia. It is a task force where the members, comes from the private and also the public sector. It's a balanced kind of membership, and a role of Pemuda is to address issues with regards to delivery system of the government to facilitate business in Malaysia. All right, so we are the secretariat, and if you look at the work that Pemuda does, especially with the most recent report launched by World Bank, Ease of Doing Business, we are now ranked number 12.
That's right.
We had improved by 3 positions. So those are areas under Ease of Doing Business. There are 10 areas, and we've got what we call the technical working groups. These are all technical working groups reporting to the main Pemuda secretariat.
Right.
We monitor performance each of that technical working group.
Well, Latif, I've got to ask you, the fact that it's parked under MITI, does it suggest that the work is essentially about creating an environment for foreign investors? That basically this is looking out into the world saying, come to Malaysia, ease of business, and low red tape and so on and so forth. So please come and invest here, as opposed to being parked under something like the Ministry of Entrepreneurship or ministries that deal with the domestic situation.
Yeah.
How do we understand it?
Well, anything that we create, it is with a purpose. Right? The word itself, Ministry of International Trade and Industry. You're talking about training, you're talking about industrial development. But of course, MITI does not work alone. When you talk about one government, you will have to work with the entrepreneurs, you have to look at even, because when you talk about industrial development, you have to also impact on environment, you have to work with the Ministry of Environment and all that. But of course, Pemuda is being put under MITI because we are talking about business related.
Right.
Business related will have got to do with a flow of investment, license to do business. You are talking about really facilitating entrepreneurs to expand their business and all that. So I think doesn't matter whether it comes under MITI, comes under MPC, but then again when you talk about expediting the necessary services, it has to be whole of government approach.
It has to be across all ministries, right? You mentioned, Latif, a bit earlier, the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Report 2020. And yes, you're absolutely right. Malaysia has done well. So 12th position out of 190 countries. And it's much better than last year. We were at 15th spot and the previous year at 24th spot. So clearly, we're moving up the ranks. We're doing something right in this respect. Talk to us about the good practice, the good regulatory practice, GRP initiatives. I'm guessing this has something to do with the fact that we are increasingly getting better as a country that allows for business, more conducive for business to come in and invest.
Right. When we talk about good regulatory practice, the essence of GRP is about consultation. We must do consultation. All right? When we develop any regulation, or even to abolish any regulation, even to amend regulation, we must consult with all the affected stakeholders. Now, we talk about GRP, we must first understand what is the problem that we have at hand. All right? And then we have to look at what options do we have. Not doing anything is also one option.
Oh.
All right? Could be the best. All over time, things will just get improved. But as I've said, options will be based also on the impact. Each of that options that we were looking at in terms of benefit and also cost. But then again, I had mentioned about element of consultation. You must have sufficient consultation, and it is based on issues that we have at hand. And what is most important is to look at strategies for implementation. You can come up with good regulation, but then if you are short of good implementation strategy, then good regulation would just be just regulation, right? It needs to be implementable, it needs to be effective, it needs to be monitored. And some of the regulation, it doesn't come only under purview of just one particular authority or ministry. It has to be at times whole of government, or it will also involve more than one agencies or ministry.
So, you know, here we have an independent organization, World Bank, you know, placed Malaysia very high in the rankings because we're being compared to 190 economies, right? But what about the perception? Is there a perception that Malaysia is improving as a place for doing business, and or is the idea that there's a lot of red tape still a kind of baggage that the Malaysian government economy carries?
It's about branding, isn't it? Branding Malaysia as a marketable country for business.
Now, we must remember, World Bank, overall, yes, Malaysia had improved by 12th position. And it is based on 10 areas of doing business. You're looking at the full cycle of doing business, from starting business until closing business. Of course, in between, you've got about, you know, issues of registering property, enforcing contract, and all that. Now, generally, yes, we have done well, but there are areas that we need to improve. That's why the GRP is important. There are some procedures you will see that it is still burdensome. For example, starting a business, we are ranked number 126. From 122, we slided by 4 positions.
So that's not doing, we're not doing very well in that respect.
There are regulations being introduced, procedures being introduced, especially like now, you know, introduction of SST. It takes 4 days. 4 days. Right? So World Bank is looking not just number of procedures, but also time taken. So that affects our ranking. But for construction permit, at one time, 10 years ago, we were ranked 138. But today we are now ranked second. We moved, you know, over the years from 138, we went down to 126, 98, 48, 26, and then we went down to I think 13, and then we were at position number 3. But this year, when the report came out last week, we are now ranked number 2.
This is for construction.
Dealing with construction permit to construct a building in Kuala Lumpur. Now, World Bank study is based on actual. They get real data. It's not based on, you know, perception. No, it is based on case study. They will ask, you know, those involved, what would be the number of procedures involved in order to develop, you know, a simple warehouse in Kuala Lumpur. So I think as far as ease of doing business, I think it is based on real case studies. Right, looking at, you know, specific development of a building in Kuala Lumpur,
which is great, because then you can actually isolate the cases where improvement is required. I'll tell you what, we're going to continue this conversation in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned to consider this.